Good evening, Principal York, Assistant Principal Telfair. I appreciate you for having me for the second round of the interviews for the Family and Community Resource Specialist position. And looking at the situation and scenario about a ELL family that I have learned from another family in the program, they have been evicted, their possessions have been left on the street, they have no reliable transportation, and the adults in the house are unemployed. What would I do in that scenario? The first thing that comes to mind is communication. If this is a family where I know because of their enrollment and the relationship that's been built, I understand the level of communication between the family and I. Whether my Spanish, I'm going to assume we're talking Spanish, is good or their English is not so good. So hopefully the understanding of the level of communication that we can have is to a level to where we can be effective with the communication. It's important to make sure that our communication is effective because number one, I'm hearing this from another family. So I want to make sure that I communicate with this family and find out what is true and what isn't true because this family is relying upon me as well as the Westerman family to help them with the resources that they need. So I want to make sure that I can communicate with the family. And if it is a situation where there's a language barrier, I want to have a family member or a coworker of mine that can act as a translator to make sure that the information is being shared and shared alike. I would assume that during the enrollment or orientation process, this family was given information in their native tongue. That way they can have the best understanding possible in terms of what's offered at Western or Ann Arbor Public Schools. So I want to contact this family, find out what is and what isn't true, what we need to do. This is obviously, if it's true, it's obviously an urgent situation. So the welfare and the safety of the children are the first thing that's come to my mind. So let's contact this family. Now, if it is true, excuse me, the first thing we need to do is establish housing. So my first referral in terms of housing would be to the Washtenaw Housing Access. I believe it's called HAWK, like the Housing Access of Washtenaw County. I believe that's a resource that I'm not sure what we have at Westerman already in place, but just going off of my mindset, that's where I would think of. Or you have preventative. I know there's a preventative measures, preventative process that we can also steer these parents to, as well as missions that could immediately put families in hotels. So that would be the first thing I would do is secure housing for this family in need. Make sure that the kids are safe and fed and sheltered. So we're also talking about a situation where we're talking about transportation. If this family doesn't have proper transportation, good transportation, I would first contact our transportation to make sure that at the very least our children have a means to get to and from school. Our I would assume that our first responsibility is to the children, the parents, maybe city bus. I'm pretty sure that we have resources working in our public schools. I've seen us work with the children, make sure that those that need passes can get passes, especially if they live a certain distance. I believe it's 1.5 miles away from the school. They have access to the city bus and they can catch the bus. So I would want to make sure that we can establish transportation to and from school for our children before we try to establish some type of transportation for the parents, which leads to the next thing in terms of the adults in the house that don't have employment. We can refer them to Manpower. We can refer them to Michigan Works. There's several places we can try to help them gain employment to try to help the situation. So again, I would be effective with my communication to the family, making sure that we know what's going on and that there is effective communication going back and forth. So the allocation of the resources can be the right resources and we're not wasting time because we're talking about the babies. Transportation, making sure that the kids have reliable transportation to and from school. We want to make sure of that. The possessions, something that I forgot to speak on. I don't think that we are. I don't think that we would be crazy interested in terms of possessions like the family lose their microwave, that the family lose some toys, that the family lose a television. I would think that when we're talking about possessions, we're talking about clothing. So we have Ann Arbor Community Center. We have Kiwanis. We have a house by the side of the road. We have several resources, places that I know of personally that we would direct these families to make sure that the kids are taken care of first and foremost, that the kids have the resources that they need to be able to get back to some normality because we don't want them to suffer any more trauma than they have to suffer. So, communication is number one. Make sure it's effective communication, be it from myself, a coworker, or a family member. Also, what I didn't mention with housing is I think that it'd be a great idea to also speak with to see if there's someone in their family that they could stay with immediately. That would probably be the quickest and most immediate. But if there are four adults in this house already, it's probably not a great likelihood that there's another family member that they can stay with. So, in terms of housing, again, making sure that the mission or the housing access of Washington County the preventative measures we can take to try to house the families, transportation, getting with our school system, our busing system to make sure that the children have access to school, jobs for the adults in the house, Michigan Power, I'm sorry, Michigan Works Manpower, just making sure that they have all the resources that we should be able to supply them with. But number one, again, getting back to the initial point of communication, making sure that the communication with the families are being built to a point to where if we have a dire situation, we have a urgent situation, we can make sure that there's a level of communication to where we, the ones who are looked to be able to provide or at least refer resources, we can get that to the families in need that depend upon us. So that would be how I would handle that situation. Chronologically, I'm not sure. Obviously, communication comes first. Housing, I would say, would come second. Possessions, probably third. Transportation, fourth. Because I'm thinking in terms of urgency and need. And we have to make sure that, number one, the welfare of the children comes first. In terms of why a family community resource specialist, I have been that for years. I've had the ability to, I've been self employed for 15, 20 years. And I have always understood I owned a barbershop. And a barbershop in the African American community has a special place, and it's more than where you just get a haircut. It's absolutely a resource center. A lot of people come to the barbershop for things other than simply getting their hair cut. So I understand the need that people have, that they rely upon us, they depend upon us for advice, health, community projects. So I've always been that. That's just the type of person that I am. It's the type of person that I am. And those things will guide me, knowing what people need, necessities, and the lack thereof always bothered me. And so I've always been a type of person trying to help people to get whatever resources that they need or whatever information that they need. Something about me that I didn't share in the initial interview is I started a literacy program years ago. It was called Read to Your Barber, and you can Google me or look it up. Ryan Griffin, Read to Your Barber. It was on every major news network out there. It was crazy. I never want my 15 minutes of fame. I said that before. But yeah, so Read to Your Barber. And also, I am a children's book author. My series is called Roaming with Roman. I've written 5 books, 2 of them are published. They are very easy ABC read books for kids just to learn the ABCs, and it just follows a young man named Roman as he's on his adventures, whether he's going to get a haircut at the barbershop with his father or he's collecting bugs in the backyard. So I hope to hear from you soon. Take care. You said 3 to 5 minutes. I've gone 10. I apologize. Talk to you soon.